Well, hello, folks, and welcome to the Dieter Melhorn Fishing Podcast. I hope you're having a good day, whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to the show. This show kind of put together here at the last minute. It's a not exactly happy, fun fishing story. It's a bad fishing story. There's been an tournament angler that was killed, died as a result of some injuries that he sustained during a fishing tournament, actually a practice round for a fishing tournament. This took place on Lake Murray in South Carolina, which is right outside of Columbia. It's about 90 minutes south of where I live. I fished down there before. It's a lake to some of the major bass fishing events. Lots of bass fishing goes on there. Striper fishing. It's got some big blue cats in it. It's got some big channel cats in it. It's a very nice fishery, and it's a big lake. Got a couple of rivers that feed into it, and it's a beautiful place. A lot of tournaments take place there, a lot of bass fishing tournaments, and that's what happened here. It was a college bass fishing tournament of all things. These are college students from around the country. As some of y'all know, a lot of these universities have college fishing teams now, and even the high schools have them. And it's a way for kids to participate in a sport that we love, fishing, while they're in college. And they had gathered there for a large event, very big. And from what I understand, this happened on a practice day. Last week is when the crash happened. I think on the 25th. I was actually out fishing here that day, and two boats collided. I'm going to roll you in some footage from one of the local TV stations that shows the boats, and some pictures that I found online of the boats. You can tell the console section where the driver sits was completely sheared off in one of these boats. Heavy damage to the nose of one of them. Looked like one of them was impacted on the right side. Just significant damage. It looks like the boat stayed afloat. From the footage I could see, everything stayed afloat, but the anglers were still seriously injured. I think 3 of them were taken to the hospital. And two of them remained in the hospital to the next day. Now, the tournament went on. I think the tournament started the next day. I think it was a 2-day event. The tournament went on. It concluded. And the one young man, Jonathan Bryan, 21 years old, from Shelbyville, Kentucky. He's one of the anglers from Kentucky Christian University. He remained in the hospital for several days, and they released a statement yesterday, that the young man had passed away from his injuries. It sounds like possibly he was on life support or something during that time period. I don't know if his family was in town. Again, he's from Kentucky. I don't know exactly what happened there, but from what we're hearing from some folks that were there on the scene, from some reports from anglers there, is that it was very, very foggy, and there was a lot of fog in the area that morning. And the reason I'm going into this, the only reason I'm doing this is to get to this point of the fog and what happens, in this condition. Any of you guys have been out boating, you know how bad it can be. And there was a soundbite from the coach. I'm going to roll that bite. I'm going to let you hear it and give you a little comment on it. This was a local reporter who found the coach, Gene Cornhold. And keep in mind, the coach says this, as upsetting as it may sound, he gave this statement before the young man passed away. So this was in the time period right after the crash. So I think his perspective and take on it was probably different then than it would be now. I don't think he would have said what he said, but I'll roll the clip, let you see what he had to say.
We asked Kentucky Christian University head coach Gene Nornhold if anything could have been done to prevent a collision like the one that occurred Thursday. He says accidents happen.
The situation happened yesterday, and our prayers and all goes out to the kids that was in that accident. But it's basically fishing, and I mean we have incidents happens at times, and we face every situation on the water as fishermen. And it was just a unfortunate incident, and we just, we pray for his safety and for him to get well and for things to happen, good to come.
Obviously, we all know that is not something that just happens. An accident like this, as tragic as it is, it's something that is avoidable, plain and simple. Anytime two boats collide in a situation like this, it is avoidable. And that's something we have to keep in mind as anglers, fishermen who go out in boats, is that these type of collisions are avoidable. Boats colliding are avoidable. There's just no two ways about it. When two boats collide, both anglers, to a certain extent, 95% of the time, have some level of fault in that collision happening. And the big thing is with fog is you got to be able to see. And a lot of times there's some spatial disorientation that goes on when you don't know how far you can see in the fog, especially if you don't have any land references. We don't know where they were at. We don't know how far offshore they were. You can kind of figure out where you're at sometimes, when you have some land around you, or at least you can tell how far you can see. But when you're out there in the middle of a big lake, and Lake Murray's a big lake, it's hard to tell how far you can actually see, especially when the fog is really heavy and laid right down on top of the water. The bottom line is this, guys, you got to slow down. You've got to slow down. It would probably be a good idea not to go. There's a lot of times in the mornings I reschedule guide trips because of fog, or at least push them back until the fog lifts some. So if we can do anything in this situation, let's learn from it. Let's learn how bad it can be. And it's really tragic. This man, 21 years old. I mean, he's a young kid. I got a son that's 17. He's basically in that same, age category. And man, to lose him, have his, his friends and these other competitors injured, we can avoid that. And let's keep that in mind the next time we're out there in the water. Like I said, I was out fishing that same morning. We had fog in our area. It was a little higher fog on the water. You had a little more visibility with it. Don't know what their situations were, but the name of the game is slowing down. And, don't be staring at that chart, that map. A lot of us are guilty of that. You're looking at that map and you got that mapping and you're staring at that and you're running and, it's not a wise decision to do. When it's that bad, you really need to be idling through it, or going very, very slow so you got time to react. Another key point, keep this in mind, guys, a little something to think about if you're out there boating. If you're approaching a vessel, say you're in fog, you come flying up on somebody. The right thing to do is to turn right. No matter which direction, how you're approaching them, turn to the right. That's kind of the rule of thumb, just to avoid a collision. Both boats turn to the right, you won't crash into each other, or at least it'll help avoid a collision. So something to keep in mind, just that little last-ditch effort thing to try to do to avoid a collision. But the bottom line is slow down, especially in those conditions. So my condolences out to that entire fishing team from Kentucky Christian University. That's going to be something that is going to be with them the rest of their lives. And, the other competitors from the other team that were involved. I'm not sure where that team was from. I think it may have been Indiana. I saw a Indiana ID on one of the boats. So thoughts, prayers, and love to all those folks and what they're going through. And we'll catch you guys out on the water.